You are listening to the Life in Alignment podcast, and this is your host and your coach, Naphtali Anderson. And today's episode is called Breaking the Silence: How Men Can Harness Emotional Pain for Growth. So relax your mind and enjoy the show. So let's just start off being honest, right from the beginning. Men are taught not to show pain. Even physical pain, we're kind of taught, don't show that you're actually in pain. You just, grin and bear it. But especially pain of emotions. And I believe that's a huge part of why so many men are actually depressed, why the suicide rate is so high in men, why suicide more than 75% men. Okay? So let's talk today about how this is destroying men. More importantly, though, let's also talk about how to transform this from something that is destructive, okay, to a part of your tool set, something that actually makes you powerful. And start bearing your emotions, right? Your emotional pain, because that's the part that really hurts us. The emotional pain. It's obviously not the joy, the happiness and stuff, but that seems to be all fleeting. But the pain seems to be constantly there, right? And if we start to get into how our body works, right, we won't even talk about spiritual too much today. We're going to say that for the second part. But physically, how does your body work? Okay, your body is constantly releasing chemicals based on the food you eat, but also based on your thoughts, based on your emotions, right? Stress prompts the adrenal glands to release a huge surge of emotions, right? Such as adrenaline and cortisol. And adrenaline makes your heart beat faster, causes the blood pressure to go up, and gives you more energy. And that should be used immediately for a fight or flight type physical action. So in that high intensity type of action, all that adrenaline gets burned up, gets released from the body. Okay. Because when it sits too long, it now becomes essentially a poison inside your body. But this is why when we go hard at the gym, when we hit that heavy bag for a while, or just do something else that's intense, like we feel better. We feel like, okay, the stress is kind of gone. Okay. We can even do things that may be a little less intense, right? We can go for long walks, which I developed, doing a lot in college that I'll touch on a little bit later. Hiking, being in nature, because these things actually release endorphins, right? Which some people call, the happy the happy chemical, right? It releases endorphins in your brain, which energize your spirit. It makes you feel happy, right? So again, you get these releases, these chemical releases in your body, and then you feel like, okay, I dealt with it. I've moved past it. I moved past the pain. I moved past the hurt. Okay. But here's the problem. Even when we do that, we feel better for a while, but we don't actually release the thoughts and emotions behind the pain. So it actually continues to release more cortisol in the body, right? It's like similar to having a small hole in a tire. And I feel like we've all been there. I've been there tons of times. You keep just filling it up. Okay, you don't have time to get it patched yet. You don't have time to go buy a new tire and all that stuff. So what do? You just go to gas station. You fill it up with air, top it off. It rides nice, but in the back of your mind, you're always a little bit worried that you're not going to make it to your next place before the air gets too low, and then you end up destroying your tire. Right? And so when the workouts, the walks, that's filling you up. It's taking the edge off. Okay, but in the back of your mind, and I say this from my own experience, you're still worried. You're worried about how long you will be, quote unquote, okay between sessions, right? Before you know that, it's either you're just going to feel like you break down or you're just going to lose your mind. And part of the reason is not that, a tire, we have the solution, right? We can change the tire. But part of the problem for us men is that we were never taught to actually learn how to deal with these thoughts and emotions. So even when we want to release it, we don't know how. We don't know how to do it. So the only other option is just burying. And I battled with this a lot growing up. I battled battles with this so much. I buried everything, including anger, because my dad had some anger issues that he was dealing with, and so I didn't even feel like I could even show anger because I didn't want to show up like that. So I buried everything. And for me, the example that I used to use to explain what was going on for me is I would tell people I had this emotional jar, okay? This proverbial emotional jar that I would just stuff everything in, every little pain, every little frustration, every little annoyance, everything that didn't feel good. I would just stuff it in this jar and put it on the shelf. But what would happen is that eventually this jar would fall over and it felt like it would just empty out on my head. And all this emotion, all this pain, all this pressure, everything would just overwhelm me. And I probably fell into a state of depression or something like that. But honestly, I didn't even really know what it was I was feeling. I know I just didn't feel good and I was overwhelmed and I couldn't even tell you what emotion I was feeling. And so, how did I deal with that? Well, growing up, the way I dealt with that is I would just get a bigger jar. I would just get a bigger jar and then I would stuff it everything back in and just there's more room for even more crap that's going to be coming my way. And that's how I did it. And that was my cycle growing up. Like what I would do little things like I love playing basketball in the rain. We used to have a hoop in the backyard, but I would love playing basketball in the rain because I didn't really know how to release by crying or something like that. And so the rain was crying for me. Okay, it felt like a kind of washing away a bit when I would do that. Like I said, I built up the habit of taking walks in college because I was dealing with a lot of emotional pain in college and I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't talk to too many people about it, but I would just go walking in the middle of the night. And it wasn't necessarily the safest area, but I didn't know how else to deal with it because hitting the weights wasn't enough. Back in 2015, my older sister passed away. And, obviously a very, traumatic, if you can say, experience and stuff. And, I even saw her body um, in the house and everybody was outside crying and I wasn't crying at that time. And one of my brothers told me that it's like, hey, like you don't have to be so strong. Just let it out. Like you don't have to be like this tough guy. And he didn't realize that I wasn't trying to be. I just didn't even know how to process what I was feeling. I didn't know how to open up and just cry. I didn't know how to just let it go. I didn't know how. I couldn't cry in that moment if I wanted to, and I'm pretty sure I wanted to, but it just wouldn't come out. I remember even being in a conversation with a friend um, after a different experience dealing with my marriage, and um, I had told him at this point, this was about a year, 2 years, 2 years ago at this point, but I told him I just cried and it just like all just came out. And the conversation turned into how did I do that? Right? I'm not the only one. I know that, guys. How do we release this? How do we release this? But more importantly, right now, why does it matter? Why does any of this matter? Why does what I'm sharing with you right now matter about all these emotions and how I couldn't express these emotions? Or maybe how you can't express these emotions? Because there's so many men out there that feel like if they even shared their thoughts and emotions that no one would actually give a damn anyways. There's so many men that feel like they don't matter besides what they produce. And the ones that feel like they're not producing anything definitely feel like they don't matter at all. There's so many men that feel ashamed that they even have these emotional pains and struggles that they're dealing with. And they look at other men that seem so powerful and seem so put together. And they look at themselves and say, what's wrong with me? Why am I so weak? Why am I struggling with these things? Men don't care. We're not supposed to care. We're not supposed to feel. But the truth is that we're human. So we have emotions. And when we are rejecting and burying how we feel, when we're burying these emotions, when we try to ignore our pains and simply just power through everything, we are actually rejecting ourselves. These emotions, these feelings, these thoughts, these pains, etc., is actually part of us. And every time we stuff it down, we are rejecting part of ourselves. So even if other people accept us and truly do care about how we feel and what we're actually going through, it is so hard for us to accept that as truth. Because inside of ourselves, we don't even accept it as true. We don't even accept ourselves. So how can someone outside of us actually accept it and that be real? And this is why there's no trophy, there's no award, there's no status symbol or anything else that fills a void, because how we feel, look, and think about ourselves doesn't change with those symbols. All those outside things don't change the foundation of how we look at ourselves and what we see as acceptable. But this is why we do the inner work. This is why the inner work is so important, brothers. Truly is. This is why we start to embrace and open up ourselves to our emotions, and most importantly, starting to truly understand where they are coming from. We actually give everything that we experience a meaning. Nothing in our lives have any meaning until we give it meaning. The thing is that we have these meanings built from the things that we've experienced through life. It's the things that our parents taught us, that we learned in different things, TV, everything else. So these stories get created in an instant. But we actually control the meaning. We control the story. So the most powerful thing that we can do is learn to control and transform the meaning or story into something that actually serves us instead of destroys us. This is one of the greatest powers that you can have, okay, into mastering ourselves. This is why we work on that inner chamber. This is why we master that space, because that dictates our whole world. All right. I mean, some examples of things you can look up. You can look up The Work by Byron Katie. Definitely, definitely a great resource. If you like to journal, you should definitely journal, but you have to do it intentionally. You have to do it with the mindset of trying to identify your story and identify what you're telling yourself, and also identify whether it's serving you or not, and what else could be true, right? Which ties into The Work by Byron Katie. But right now, the tool that I use the most is the tool that I use with my clients. It's a process, we call stacking. And we use this on an app. It comes with prompts that actually helps you to focus on dealing with your thoughts, opening up yourself to your emotions, getting all your anger, your frustration, your sadness, everything out into this app that no one else can see unless you decide to share it with anybody. I can't even see the stacks of my clients unless they share it with me. Okay. But the powerful part is that it helps you to transform your story into something that puts you back into a place of power. Okay. And allows you to actually figure out what kind of actions that you want to take moving forward that's going to help you get what you want. That's the power of it. None of these emotions, they feel negative, but they are not negative. These are triggers that help to expose the things that we tell ourselves about how life works, about who we are, about how we are going through and connecting with others. These are triggers to help to expose how we are approaching life. And if we look at them for what they can be tools. And this is why ignoring our emotions keeps us in a spot where we are blind to who we are and what we believe and the thoughts and perspectives and the power, the energy that we are putting into our lives and why we are even doing those things. So again, stacking was created by the Warrior's Way. That's not my tool that I created. It's created by the Warrior's Way by a gentleman named Garrett J. White, who was actually inspired by the work. Okay, I learned early on the power of our stories, and I've learned that everybody has a story, and that dictates their thoughts, emotions, and their actions. I use a stack of my clients, and being a Warriors Way certified trainer, I'm happy to do it because it becomes a powerful tool for men, and it allows them the space and the safety to express themselves fully, unfiltered, without the fear of somebody finding it or something like that. But there's more that I want to say about this topic. There's more stories that I want to share and how this can empower you. Right. But right now, I really wanted to lay down a foundation of why this is even important. I want you to start thinking about the things that you're telling yourself. I want you to start opening up to the possibility that you can actually shift how you feel and the pressure that you have, that you constantly wear on your back as a man, and shift it into something that's more powerful for you. The world is constantly telling you, telling me, telling us that you have no control of how you feel and who you are in your experience in life. My goal, my goal is to show you that you are way more powerful than they will ever have you believe. Because if you believe it, then you will live it. You will live more powerfully. You will show up more powerfully. So until next time, this is Naphtali Anderson. Thank you for listening. And as always, be blessed.